I always knew there was something a little off with my fiancée, Bonnie. I willfully ignored some things about her for the last 5 years we've been together. But I don't think I can ignore what my friend Josh has been telling me. Josh lives in the same city where Bonnie works, which is about a 14-hour drive from where I live. Bonnie's been staying there for the past 3 months while she finishes off some work before our spring wedding next year. At least, that's what she told me. I trusted her, of course. Now, it's a pretty big city, so the chances of Josh and Bonnie bumping into each other were pretty slim. But as it was, Josh managed to see her with another man. They were apparently being very touchy before they got into her car and drove off. Josh was sure that it was her. That was about a month ago. I've been hurt, but I didn't bring it up with Bonnie when we FaceTimed that night. I couldn't believe it. Josh kept telling me to ask about it, but I was waist deep in denial. How could the love of my life do such a thing? Then, 2 weeks ago, Josh told me the same thing. He found her with another man, drove off somewhere. It was during his break time, so Josh couldn't just follow after her. Again, I didn't confront her and promised Josh that I would talk to her, but never did. Yesterday, he saw her do it again. This time, he got a picture. It was indeed Bonnie, all sidled up with a robust, handsome, healthy-looking guy who was practically undressing her with his eyes. Josh told me that if I wasn't going to do something about this, then he was. I know what you're thinking. Why the hell haven't I confronted Bonnie about this? I'm going to be traveling to her city next thing in the morning. But it's not a confrontation. I don't think Josh noticed, but I did. Bonnie looked excited to be with a man, but not in the way someone about to get laid would. She had this predatory look in her eyes, with a smile that almost looked inhuman. Stretched way too much, like just a few centimeters, and it would be totally unnatural. I know because I've seen her pull this off a few times with me, and when you see it in real life 2 inches away from you, waking up in the middle of the night, you'd know how terrifying it is. All of this just made me realize that there has always been so many things off about my fiancée, that her cheating on me is pretty much normal, human. I don't know how to describe it. Either way, I can't fucking sleep, and I need to, but all of these questions keep bugging me, and I need to get them out until my body's screaming for bed. Here are a few of the peculiarities about Bonnie that I've been putting off. Bonnie's way out of my league. Hell, she's way out of anyone's league for that matter. Alarmingly so. Scarily gorgeous. You wouldn't understand until you see her. She's like a goddess. She's a total head-turner, the kind of woman cars slow down for, that modeling agencies would stop in the middle of the street, the kind who could get anyone she wanted. She's the type who knows a little about everything, the one who comes up with witty lines and the most romantic gestures. She just oozes with charm and charisma. She's my best friend, my rock, my everything. She is respectfully the hottest, most amazing woman to have ever roamed this planet. It used to bother me a lot the first year we started dating, but I eased into it eventually. Bonnie makes me feel secure and loved, and she swears up and down that I make her feel the same way too. But still, sometimes when we're just spending time together outside and I see all these people looking at us like we're a spectacle, I just wonder, what's a woman like her doing with a skinny nerd like me? Whenever I bring this up to her, she just chuckles and reminds me that she's in love with me, and that I'm special, and that I make her feel like she's allowed to be here, whatever the hell that means. It usually gets me all mushy, but thinking about it now, what is here? And what does she mean by allowed? In the beginning of our relationship, we were very on and off, all initiated by her. The breakups and getting back together. Even after I realized that she would always come back, it still hurt, of course, mainly because there was never exactly a clear reason why she'd leave. She'd just sob her heart out, apologize profusely, and ramble about how she had to do this, make love with me one last time, and tell me that she will never forget me. Then, she'd be gone for a few weeks to a month and come back better than ever, begging me to take her back and that she loves me. Obviously, this got exhausting. and I finally confronted her about her behavior. I finally told her that I would rather she leave than do this painful push and pull with my feelings. It had been a painful conversation, but our relationship has been stable since, and our love for one another has only grown. But see, that was a regular red flag, right? I could easily name 5 people off the top of my head who've had on and off relationships, but it was more of an oddity than a red flag, if you were in my shoes. But that's not the only oddity. It's not the only bizarre thing I ignored. Remember that thing I mentioned about how she was smiling at the guy in the photo? I've only caught her looking at me like that about 5 or 6 times. I will never forget the first time it happened, because after that, she broke into tears and broke up with me for the first time. It was her first night sleeping over at my place. I woke up because I felt like I couldn't breathe. When I woke up, Bonnie was right on top of me, breathing into my face, drooling on my chin, and she was grinning at me like a fucking madman. I screamed and pushed her off of me. When I managed to sober up, I felt awful. I just pushed my girlfriend off the bed, for fuck's sake. Bonnie and I like to prank each other, and this must have been one of her pranks. I got off the bed and picked her up, apologizing profusely, but she was already crying. This time, she was apologizing profusely and told me that this was a bad idea. I tried assuring her that it wasn't. She calmed down a bit. We made love, and the night still ended with her apologizing and telling me that this wouldn't work out. I figured that it was my fault. I must have hurt her. I couldn't reach her after that. I hated myself for a month before she showed up again. She said that she was better now and that she wanted to make it work. The other time she did that weird prank pretty much ended the same way up until I set the record straight with her. Then she would just apologize then excuse herself. Whenever I bring it up with her now, she just gets uncomfortable and says that she doesn't like thinking about the past. Fair enough, I haven't thought about them in recent times anyway. Until now, of course. Bonnie had to get a hysterectomy at a very young age. She doesn't like talking about it much, said that it had been a painful time for her. That's not the weird part. Just so we're clear, since Bonnie and I discussed starting a family, she's been very open about being unable to have children of our own because of her surgery. No problem with me at all. I always knew that adoption was going to be something I'd do someday, anyway. But here's the thing. On occasion, Bonnie smells like blood. Before she'd told me she'd gotten a hysterectomy, I always figured that it was just her period. After I found out, I convinced myself that it was phantasmia. But now, I have to face the facts. The smell only comes from Bonnie. When she's close, I smell it. When she isn't, I can't. Sometimes she would tell me out of the blue that she would never hurt me on purpose. The first few times were really sweet, but the more serious we got in our relationship, the more she would tell me that. She would bring it up in the most random moments, too. Mostly during sex. We could be doing some sexy role-playing, and she'd suddenly lean down to my ear and tell me with a quivering voice that she would never hurt me. It throws me off often, but I just ignore it. I guess that it was her own way of telling me she loved me. Ignoring the way it would sometimes make me feel uneasy. Anyway, the latest thing that weirded me out that only developed about 3 years ago was her fascination with hoarding. I was sure that Bonnie wasn't a hoarder herself, but she was fascinated with the idea of it. She loves squirrels for this reason. She watches videos of them often. It's actually cute seeing her get excited when we manage to see a squirrel scurrying off with nuts, but kind of weird when she just stands there staring, as if she's thinking deeply about something. I could have just chalked it up to a squirrel addiction, but I knew that it must have been something deeper. We even got into an argument when the toilet paper stockpiling came up at the beginning of the pandemic. She vehemently defended the idea of it while I thought it was dumb. I'd thought that it was a fun little discourse. But by the end of it, she was deeply upset and tearful and retreated to our room. It was awkward, but I apologized and half-heartedly told her it wasn't dumb. She wouldn't talk to me properly for days before she, too, apologized. After that, I never brought the topic up with her again. Those are the ones I'm dwelling on right now. Thank fuck this work. I'm sleepy and honestly exhausted mentally. I don't want to think anymore. Normally when I feel this way, I could turn to Bonnie to talk to and snuggle with, and more. But right now, she's the problem. For now, I need to catch up on my sleep so that I can head to her city as early as I can tomorrow. I might just be reading into things and I'm just going insane over the idea of losing Bonnie, but I just feel like there's something bigger than this. I just don't know yet which outcome I'd prefer.